right, ready? Welcome, everybody, to the May 30th ARB review meeting tonight. You in the audience and also everyone in TV land, welcome. And if we could have a roll call, please, Brian?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Chair Stein?
That's you.
Oh, that's me.
You're here.
I'm here.
Vice Chair
Come
Blakemore?
on.
Here.
Board Member Johnson?
Here.
Board Member Little?
Here.
And Board Member O'Connor?
Here. I know we have to do that, but it seems rather obvious there's 5 of us here, so.
It's official.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, now is the time for the public to comment on items not on our agenda. So if there's something not here, yes, please, come on up, and then we'll need you to fill out a speaker slip.
Thank you. I'm Sue Skandarian. I live at 5.
If you could just,
There you go.
yeah, it's a little tall for you. Yeah.
Yeah, Caleb's our technical guy here, so.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Sue Skandarian.
Hi.
I live at 5583 Kali Arena, and I just have a curious question. Story poles, do they stay up forever? We have a lot on Kali Arena, and it's not numbered where it is, but it's between 5567, I think, and 5555. It's on the track side, and there are big story poles. They've kind of been battered by wind and everything. And I wondered, do they just stay up, or is there a certain time limit? That's all, just curious.
Oh, no, it's a
Thank
good
you.
question, Sue. Sure. So typically, the goal is to have the story poles up for the preliminary ARB review process and consideration, and then they would stay up typically until the Planning Commission hearing on the project or decision on the project. The hope is that that's a short period of time, maybe, perhaps 60 or 90 days. Sometimes those permit processes get extended and they can last longer than that. If they are in bad shape and they're unsightly and there's no pending hearing on the agenda, we would be able to have them, take a lot of photographs and photo document them and have them removed. But if you'd like to follow up with me, you can reach out. My name is Brian Banks.
Yes?
And you can find me on the city's contact page, and just shoot me an email or give me a call tomorrow, and then we'll look up the status of the application and we'll talk to the planner and see if there's a way that they can
Thank you, that's very nice.
they can be
Thank you very much.
taken down.
Thank you
Sure.
for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Anybody else? Okay. Oh, Bob? Now, I've got a speaker slip.
Yeah, I gave it to you.
Yeah, I know. Is this for an item on the agenda or something separate?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's on, especially for the TV.
All right, I thought I was gonna catch you on a slow night.
Yeah.
No such luck. But I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. Remember that huge solar project at Sandpiper? Well, they decided just to do the clubhouse, which is fine with us. That's exactly what we wanted. And as it turned out, they did a terrific job. It looks really good. But the main thing I wanted to convey to you is thank you from the residents of Sandpiper for your tremendous help in us resolving this project. You guys are the best. We just wanted to thank you from a very relieved and grateful Sandpiper. Thank you. Thank you, Board.
Well, thank you. We're
Thank
just
you.
doing our job, sir. Thanks, Bob. Don't go away. I got a speaker slip for you.
He spoke.
No, I
Yeah, but
thought
we
this
need
was
a
item number 2. Oh, wait, no, wait. That was just it, Bob? You're not speaking to one of these issues?
No.
Oh, okay.
But he needs to fill. Did he fill one out yet?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
He did.
then you're good.
All right, but
Thank you,
didn't-
Bob.
Didn't say why. Okay. Thanks, Bob.
It's free to move about.
Okay, yeah. It was brief. Okay. Then we'll be starting with our first item, project extra space storage signage, 6250 Villarreal.
The seat is yours.
Okay. And now is Marisol going to handle this? or-
I'm going to be pinch hitting for Marisol, doing double duty tonight. We have Eric here. From the, representing the sign company and the agent for Extra Space Storage. So as your board members saw in the staff report, it's a very small project here at 6250 Villarreal. The storage facility has been under new operator and therefore changing the existing signage to reflect Extra Space Storage.
Okay. And at this time, if I may ask, anybody have a ex parte? Nope.
No.
No interaction. Okay.
You got me. Good
No,
job.
no,
I'm usually
actually-
reminding you.
Actually, Amy reminded me.
Okay,
so
okay, so we both failed and Amy got it.
Amy keeps us on track.
That's what I'm here
believe me.
for.
That's what you're.
So in terms of general location, here we have highlighted in yellow is the facility to the east of Vista de Santa Barbara and to the west of the Lagunitas development. You can see here in the upper right, this is the existing frontage along Via Real. The facility itself is set back, I think, over 100 feet from the frontage, and therefore this sign serves as, the existing sign serves as their primary identification. Again, kind of an older sign, wooden sign, being replaced with this sign. Approximate dimensions of area of about 16 square feet in area, well below the 80 square foot maximum requirement, about 4.5 feet in height and 6 feet in width. Being proposed in the exact same location as the existing permitted sign there by the entrance. Here's a photo, realistic representation of the sign at its installed size, roughly. You can see quite small, and again in the same location, that little landscaped area. It would be an internally illuminated sign, as we see most often these days with LEDs. We did make sure, and thank you for responding with the, Marisol had some questions about the illumination and the wattage, and we got that. It would be 472 lumens, which with my handy dandy sheet would be, so 450s, a 5-watt LED, so this is slightly over a 5-watt LED, which is equivalent to about a 30-watt incandescent bulb.
30-watt incandescent bulbs.
Color temperature, for those interested, it's pretty white. In terms of the neighborhood compatibility, the neighborhood signage in the MRP area is made up of, kind of a mix of different sign types. This would be the Extra Space sign that before you today would be a little unique in that it's dissimilar to the other existing signage out in that neighborhood, but not something that would be unusual in terms of internally illuminated signs. So we're looking for your feedback on the overall sign design and its neighborhood compatibility, its location, and wattage would be an important consideration in this one as well. So in summary, we'd like your feedback on the design, material, color, and lighting, the relationship of the signage to the building itself, again being the signs primarily functioning to locate a visitor, a patron, to the facility. It's set back pretty substantially from Via Real, so signage of a typical wall sign type of thing really wouldn't function that well to identify. You'd miss it before you saw the facility. And then, of course, the overall compatibility with the small beach town character. If your board sees fit, the project has already been reviewed by planning staff to meeting all the requirements, and if the project is acceptable by your board, we would ask you to recommend preliminary approval to the preliminary and final in this case to the director. And that concludes my presentation, and we do have Eric here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any questions for staff?
I have a question. Is the existing sign illuminated already?
It is not. It's not internally illuminated. There might be a small fixture there, like an uplight on each side of it,
So
but not
there won't be any
internally.
like trenching or anything to get to it? It's
No,
already
it's
got
all-
electrical?
it's all there.
And then are we also approving there was an,
Sorry. Yes, there is a small wall sign that you see in the staff report, but not represented in Marisol's presentation here. It's very, very small and up against the
minor.
building, just kind of identify. You would already be at the facility and in through the gate by the time you saw that sign.
all right, thank you.
Is the field color of the sign illuminated? The background of these letters?
No, it would just be the lettering would illuminate through that material.
Yep.
So at night, you would just see the letters,
Yes, sir.
and it would be on all night long.
It would be set on a timer, so we would make sure it turned off as soon as either solar sensor,
Photo center.
so that
Photo
we,
cell,
yeah,
yeah.
photo cell. That way we make sure as soon as the sun comes up, it turns right off.
So that's all.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So the part that is illuminated, we talked about the lumens. Oh, do we know what the Kelvin is? It looks pretty bright.
7,000.
7,000.
So that's bright
White.
white.
It's white.
Prefer the warm, to be honest, but maybe that's a comment for later.
That could definitely be a comment.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll work. Add to it.
Just as a question, I kind of thought our sign ordinance had something about wood carved signs as being a standard that is acceptable in the community as opposed to plastics.
So plastic or acrylic is not disallowed.
Okay.
In this case, it would be replacing essentially a wood sign with the acrylic type of signage.
Okay.
Brings a thought to mind. So the business changed hands recently. It was a private company. And it's
Yeah, I
now-
think I'm not sure about the business owner. I think it's like an operator, so I don't know that the owner changed, but I think this is an operator, and Eric probably doesn't know who's representing the sign company, but I think that's how it's a company that operates the facility, but the underlying property owner, I believe, is the same.
Yeah, my thought is were there concessions when that operator took over related to any other issues with the city? And is this part of any of those concessions?
Not that I know of. Mm-mm.
Okay. Anything else?
All the square footage requirements.
Yeah, it's
Well
it's
under.
pretty small sign. It's well, I think 80 is our standard, and this is about 16 and a half
Yeah, 16 and a half.
per side. Yeah, you get 80 per side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eric? Anything to add, or?
Thank you guys for your time.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, I'll bring it up. Comment? You started with Patrick with the.
Yeah, I
lumens?
guess I would comment about the Kelvin versus the lumens. A warm white seems to be probably a little more neighborhood compatible than the bright white, particularly if it's,
Like
you
the
know.
3,000 range? Is
Yeah,
that
3 to
any
4
warm?
is
3 to 4?
is considered warm. And anything over 5, I think, is bright
Right.
as opposed to just white.
That's a good point.
Okay, anyone else? Question?
Was that a question, or?
Well, that was
That's
a
just a
suggestion.
preference.
and I-
It's a-
I have
it's
to
a
agree with that,
preference.
too, so
Sounds like a
I-
comment to me.
Yeah, comment, and I think that's a good comment. And again, the sign man's here, so.
Yeah, there's definitely different LED modules that we can accommodate to, so that we can accommodate to you guys as well.
So it's here for preliminary final.
Could give
So
final.
We could
Give
say,
direction.
You could condition it for a
Condition.
maximum Kelvin temperature, if that's what you like, or provide a range, and that would be good for Marisol, and then we can condition the project that
I
way.
was just looking it up. I think it's 3 to 4. Yeah, 3 to 4,000 Kelvin.
Okay, is there any other observations anyone wants to change? Otherwise, Patrick, you want to make a motion to?
Sure, I'll make a motion to advance it to final, as final, with exception of 3 to 4,000 Kelvin as the illumination.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, so Patrick made the motion, Amy second. Vote. He's writing.
Okay. I'm ready for your
No,
vote, sir.
Yeah, he was right. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I opposed? No. No.
There you go. So we'll follow up. We'll just make sure that we'll provide you a letter, and that'll be a condition on it. And so just, if you can update the plans to reflect that, and then shoot those back to us. And, choose your bulb. If there's a standard bulb between 3 and 4K, that is an industry type bulb, and you want to put that in, we're good to go.
Sounds good.
All righty?
Alrighty.
Take care, Eric. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Changing.
Hard to make those illuminated in this area.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
It can be
See
done.
Any speaker slips for?
There we go.
Okay. And we will call for item number 2. We'll call again for any speaker slips before public comment. Thank you, Chair. All right. Thank you.
Okay, now, I think this is why everyone else is here. Let's see. Okay, number 2, the Palms. This is a conceptual review, so come on up. And I'll just ask ahead of time so Amy doesn't elbow me again. Anybody have any experte communications? No?
No.
No. Okay. Welcome. And Brian,
Yep, double duty.
you're the man.
Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so before you here, item number 2 is a proposal for a complete renovation of the Palms Restaurant at 701 Linden Avenue. Didn't include a vicinity map because I'm sure that everybody knows the location. So in this case, we're only here for a conceptual review and just to put a kind of limit on what the purpose of conceptual review is in terms of the ARB process is obviously to provide an early opportunity for the applicant to receive feedback from your board on the project. Non-binding, as you know, there's no required conditions or approval or vote. However, in this case, the applicant chose, rather than to go the route of the Planning Commission, City Council, ARB joint meeting, to sit before your board first and get specific feedback on the architecture and take that into account with the intention of potentially coming back again and going through that joint Planning Commission, City Council, ARB process. So I think in this case, it's probably a good idea to get high-level read from your board and see the direction that the project's taking, and then at the applicant's discretion, they would have the opportunity to come back and again present at the joint meeting setting. So for the audience, members of the public, no decision on the project today. This is just a high-level read and get some feedback from the ARB and hear public comment. So no decisions this evening. The project proposes an interior and exterior renovation, including some elements on the rooftop, interior remodel of the ground floor existing restaurant building, including the southern half of the adjacent brick building, which is now part of Oaxaca Fresh. A new banquet and private dining use would be proposed on the second floor, which there was no restaurant use there previously. An exterior renovation to remove the majority of the non-historic exterior elements and then to rehabilitate much of the historic facade on primarily the Linden elevation and the 7th Street elevation. Conversion of the portion of the roof to a partially covered rooftop dining and bar area. The project does not propose a change in the on-site parking other than a minor reconfiguration of the spaces and the accessibility striping that's required, and then a fairly comprehensive new landscape plan, which you'll see. So on the right, we have the site plan, aerial site plan of the existing building. On the left, we have the proposed site layout. A few things to note here: that the primary change from the existing building would be the removal of this 1960 shed roof addition. So this was not obviously an original element of the 1912 building and was added in 1960 to expand the dining / kind of dance area there for those that were familiar with the Palms. That would be replaced with a trellised patio area. Really, the modifications on the south side, or the 7th Street elevation, would primarily be to remove this existing stairway and little canopy, a slight reconfiguration of the openings on that elevation, but a substantial improvement in the landscape area there. I think most importantly there, besides the rehabilitation of the landscaping there, would be to expand here and kind of turn the corner of a planter area back here, which takes advantage. That's all just kind of, pavement area. So that, I think, is a pretty pronounced change in that, and improvement on that elevation. At the rear, slight reconfiguration of how things work here with the stairway, and this one-story element out back. reconfiguring the stairway that accesses the roof. This would not be a primary patron or public access. This would be, for maintenance and repairs and so forth. And it would be a means of egress to meet building code requirements for uses that were proposed up there. But the primary way to access the roof would be through the proposed elevator and internal stairway. On the north side, so this is kind of this is the back of, so it's a little bit interesting. You see it, when you see it from Linden, you don't really realize, but this little portion here, that was, the Oaxaca Fresh side, is actually part of the Palms building. So in back there's this little roofed area, and then kind of a larger paved store, which was basically a storage area. That's going to get reconfigured slightly and enclosed with a wood fence to create, kind of a proper storage area for trash and so forth. And then a new roof element here to provide an interior storage area of the building. In terms of the footprint, it's basically the same how it's functioned before, but it would be fenced in, and then this area here would now become roofed. Of course, major element here, major change is the rooftop elements, which would include a bar, counter area, and restroom that would be covered with trellised, roofed, solid covered roofed area to meet health department requirements, but it kind of looks like, in elevation, kind of looks like a trellis, much like the front ground floor dining area would look. And then, available seating, elevator and stairway access here on the south side. This feature is a glass atrium, which you'll see, I think, in elevation as well. And then, kind of just the general layout of the seating arrangement. On the first floor, restaurant use and the associated areas here. Again, this little rectangle, this is that annex, I think we're calling it now, to the Palms. That is part of the previously the Oaxaca Fresh portion. The biggest change, obviously, would be the removal of that first floor shed roofed addition and creation of this outdoor dining terrace area. And then, of course, the elevator and internal stairway access. And you've got your various back of house functions, kitchen areas, storage, and so forth. In the annex portion here, this was served primarily as like a cafe to go / potential retail space, and the applicant team can kind of, when it's their turn here to present, give you a better understanding of what that would be. But that would be consistent with the allowed uses in the CB zone district. So it's a small component. It's an annex to the primary restaurant function, and I think it's envisioned as something that you can come in, grab a bite, throughout the day when the main restaurant may be closed between breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm not sure what the operating hours would be, but I think that's the vision, and the applicant team can explain that a little further. On the right here, of course, you see the demo plan, and those that frequent in the Palms, this is kind of how it is, how it was, and you can see. So in terms of the seating arrangement, not a lot of change there. The bar function still kind of in the old area it used to be. No more dancing. No more dancing.
Where do you cook your own steak?
I was going to say we haven't got into the steak, the cook your own part, but maybe
Gone?
maybe that'll be something that'll come back, because that's sorely missed. At least it is for me.
And me. And our kids.
On the second floor, so right now the second floor, we have to remember this is over 100-year-old. Essentially, it was a hotel, kind of a boarding room. There was some leftover quasi apartment units that have an interesting history. Were not really accessible to the public, and so not a function that I think many of us enjoyed over the years. But nevertheless, that now would become a private dining / banquet / event space. Again, I'll let the applicant team provide some more information into the operation and what they're proposing. But essentially, this would be new at restaurant and event banquet area that where none exists now. And that would take place on the second floor. Again, now you have your elevator and stairway access and all the required ADA accessibility things that come along with that. But no additional square footage, so the footprint is staying the same on the second floor. On the roof deck, kind of as I described previously in the site plan, covered bar, restroom element towards the west. There would be a solid wall, here with the intent there to kind of lessen the impact to the neighbors, the residential neighbors along 7th Street and that neighborhood to the west. Again, the atrium, the central feature here that goes all the way through the 2 floors below. Seating area. The applicant did think about, not just the visual aspects, but the intensity and noise aspects, and had purposely provided these planter areas here along the perimeter of the roof that you'll see in the landscape plan to set back the patio, dining area from the sides of the building. And again, you'll see here the kind of reconfigured stairway access that exists now, but this would function for building code purposes and would be slightly changed in terms of its arrangement. So the primary elevation, of course, is Linden. And so what you see here is the existing configuration on top. And then below, the most pronounced change, obviously, as we discussed, would be the removal of this 1960 addition and then creating this trellised, mostly covered, but with some openings there to let light in, mostly covered dining area. Part of that change in that elevation would also be a restoration of the original rhythm of the openings, doors and windows and materials there. So now the historians like that aspect because it opens up kind of that original ground floor view of what it used to be in the original design of the building. So they were very supportive of this feature, even though this trellised patio area would not be original. It was not included in the original construction. They felt that it was a big improvement over the existing condition and allows that kind of those openings, the original openings, to be displayed and become again part of that frontage. The dotted line here is just merely to make it easy to understand the existing height in relation to a 30-foot height limit. So you can just see peeking up, I think it's less than a foot, 8 inches, or, okay, I couldn't remember, less than a foot of the atrium, the proposed glassed atrium pyramid would peak up above that, but that would be considered an architectural feature in our code that would be allowed. So the second elevation is along 7th Street here. Again, large change here would be the removal of this second floor stairway and then some restoration of some of the non-original openings and replacement of doors and windows near, if not in the exact, near to their original locations. You can see here, of course, on the Linden side, Linden being here, the difference between that add-on 1960 addition and then the proposed trellised patio dining area. The largest change, obviously, would be the introduction of these elements on the roof. The tallest portion you see here is the elevator tower, and then this would be that portion of the restroom over here, covered covered bar area here, and then the landing for the stairs and the elevator and so forth here. You'll see here the difference in height. So interestingly, Much like the pyramid atrium, we do have in our code allowances for architectural features, stairways, elevator shafts, landings, those sorts of things. So the elevator tower would function as an architectural feature, and it would be allowed to exceed the height limit without a modification or variance or any special treatment. However, 1'8", the element here of the additional bar area, restroom, and so forth, that would require a modification because it exceeds the city's 30-foot height limit. So just to make that distinction there between an architectural feature in the code and then building height would be the definition here we would be looking at in this 31-foot 8-inch. These are part of the building. They're structures that would not function as architectural features. The rear elevation, this would be along Yucca. Again, kind of the existing condition. There is the stairway there and this one-story little appendage off there that got up to that second floor. Kind of interesting arrangement of rooms in there. That would all be reconfigured. This element was important to be preserved. This one-story element was actually identified in the historic report as a significant feature of the building, and so it needs to remain. Not sure why, but that's up to the historians. You can see here what's done with the stairway. Then again, this would have to meet, if we're going to have patron area, and I'm not building code person, but it's my understanding, if we're going to have patron area, public area up here, then we'd need to have egress and meet the various code requirements and railing heights and all of those things. So that's the function here of the stairway reconfiguration. And then, obviously, again, in this elevation, you can see the trellis roofed, bar area and restroom, and then peeking up above that, the elevator tower. And then here, as you might recall, over the back of the annex, this would be that storage area, and then the wood fence that would enclose that now unenclosed area, and then some other enclosed areas for trash and so forth. On the north elevation, there's not a lot happening there. It's really not visible from most viewing angles, and so this is kind of limited to rehabilitation of the facade and some window changes and the brick treatment we can talk about as well. So this is not a primary elevation that you would get that would get much treatment, nor would you see very much. And even though we do have these rooftop elements up here, this also wouldn't be very visible considering the existing buildings to the north up along Linden. So in section, you can see the elevator tower, obviously, and you can see that atrium pyramid element that goes down through the buildings in section here. So we have some photorealistic renderings here. On the top, existing. On the bottom, proposed. These are probably easier to see in the plans that you have, because I had to get them down to small enough size I can fit them all on a page.
No,
And so you can see on the
second.
on the north elevation how it's blocked out by the existing buildings. In the rear, you can kind of see what's going on with the stairs there, and obviously the introduction of the new rooftop element. Here you see it less from this view across the catty corner, but you can see the elevator tower peeking up there. Perspective aerial view. Again, the new rooftop elements. You can see here the openings in the proposed trellis patio area to let some light in, and just that configuration. Parking lot remaining essentially the same location, same number of spaces, just restriped and meeting the accessibility requirements. And then, of course, the new and rehabilitated landscape going on along 7th Street. In terms of the landscape plan, the biggest feature is the kind of brand new treatment of that existing area. Now that that stairway, with this plan, that stairway would be removed, which opens up quite a bit of new area here to landscape. And then, of course, as we discussed, this would be all new landscape area here that could wrap around the corner. One thing you'll see in the staff report, staff does recommend a study of, gosh, this looks great, and it's neat to get all this new compatible landscaping in. Wonder if we can do something here to extend that up against the sidewalk there, so we have a break, you know, a little planter strip or something, so we have a break between the parking area. It seems like we would be able to do that if we slid the parking areas down and introduce a little planter there. It might find a little relief there from pedestrians as they're walking down the sidewalk. The other interesting element here, again, is the planter areas on the roof that you can see here in this plan view. And again, the intent there, I think that's between a 7 and 9 foot wide planter there on the roof to put those more intense uses to the center part of the roof instead of all the way off to the side, and adds landscape area. So we wouldn't count that as landscape area in terms of its code percentage requirements, but it is extra landscaping area, which is good. I think we ended up at approximately 12% landscape coverage, which is well within the range of minimum 5 and then all the way up to 20. Considering the property size relative to the building footprint and the open areas for landscaping, I think they've done a good job to try to maximize the amount of landscaping that they could squeeze on the site and still have the parking area that they need. But again, be interesting to hear your comments, Board, about maybe the opportunity to put some more landscaping in here along the street. The landscape palette, I'll let the folks that know the stuff talk about that. I think the idea is to have there are some palms proposed as part of the palette to kind of, you know, I wouldn't say mimic, but to accentuate the historic palms along Linden and kind of bring that all together, as well as, you know, the various, you know, mostly drought tolerant, succulent type of landscaping, which all seems, you know, appropriate to our setting. But Amy will tell me where I'm wrong. In terms of colors and materials, this is more like inspiration. One feature that I do want to promote is something we talked to the applicant team in when they very first came in and discussed the project, was the brick color. And so it was one of those things where, well, it was originally brick, you know, but then when we were looking at with now the 700 Linden project and what we've got going on, we're kind of getting a lot of, in the existing, you know, Oaxaca Fresh building, we kind of got a lot of brick. And then the other thought was, gosh, if you're going to take all those decades and decades of thick paint off that, are we going to start to now impact the historic brickwork? And so what the applicant team came up with was this color scheme, which again keeps a painted brick appearance, and then there would be certain preservation techniques as outlined in the historic report that was attached to the staff report. That there's some technical, you know, information and information out there what you do with brickwork and these kind of buildings, and Department of the Interior preservation standards that would be utilized to preserve that brick. The other important historic element is the pressed metal cornice along the roof, and that would be restored and maintained. Again, conceptual level plan, so we don't have a lot of architectural details and things to present, you know, light fixtures and that sort of thing. So just kind of high level inspiration kind of ideas here. Much like you saw just recently on the 700 Linden project, optional mural, something to consider. The applicant team can talk more about. I think with all the landscaping that they're proposing, which is great, I don't know how much of it would really be visible. The historians didn't have a problem. So basically, from the historic point of view, anything that can be removed, they are typically okay with, because you're not impacting the historic status of the building. Even these rooftop elements, surprisingly, they said would not impact the historic significance of the building because they could be removed in the future. How practical it would be for some future owner to remove that, I'm not sure, but from a historic preservation standpoint, those would be acceptable. Again, all of this is outlined in the historic report. So the fun history here. So I think as many of you know, and we kind of talked about real quick here, dates back to 1912, and it was indeed a hotel. The Palms, which it's named after, are historic. Is, I guess, even though there's many of them, historic landmark, and thus the Palms name came at the same time. Again, that 1960 edition I talked about earlier on the front. The location is within our central business district and with a visitor serving overlay. Those uses would be appropriate and compatible with the downtown zone district. As we discussed briefly in the historic report, there was a Phase 1/2 report prepared. So a Phase 1 report is typically where they just, the historians determine is the building, is it or is it not potentially significant, whereas a Phase 2 report is they would look at your plans and renovations or what it is that you might want to do to alter, add on, change the building, and then they look at the plans in context with its historic significance and then provide recommendations or steer you in a different direction. And so in this case, the report was a 1/2. Everybody knew it was going to be determined to be historically significant, so the Phase 1 was not the important part. The Phase 2 part, analyzing the proposed project and the changes, that's the meat and potatoes you'll see in that report. As we briefly discussed, the features that were identified that contribute to the significance of the building are the 2-story volume and that rear 1-story element. I don't know why in the back there. Obviously the brick walls, the roof level parapet, and the pressed metal cornice. The arrangement of the original doors and windows, the existing wood frame windows, which still remain, many of them, and the south and west elevations, first floor door openings, which I think at least 2 of those are going to be restored to the original configuration. And as I said, the report concludes that the project is consistent with the city's historic preservation policies and with CEQA. CEQA is required, a review of the historic significance would be required under CEQA. Again, the proposed project would be consistent as a restaurant / retail, private dining banquet use would be consistent with the central business zone and the visitor serving overlay. So there's no special treatment modifications or extenuating zoning issues with the proposal. The setback, so that 1960 first floor addition is built essentially right up to the sidewalk, right up to the property line, and it's therefore that appendage is legal nonconforming. Today, you would need to maintain at least a 5-foot setback from the property line, from the sidewalk. Staff feels that there are other instances in the downtown area where you have buildings, especially those private patio areas, pedestrian-friendly, set up right up to the sidewalk. Feel really comfortable that meets the policies in the general plan that kind of encourage that kind of design and pedestrian-friendly feel. Would like to get your feedback on that, of course, but it would require a modification by the Planning Commission since that addition is going to be demolished and potentially rebuilt as this patio area. It would lose its legal non-conforming status. Height limit, as we discussed, so the proposed building structures at 31 feet 8 inches would require a modification. There's no relief in our code other than the architectural features that we discussed, which would be essentially the elevator tower and that small little less than a foot of the pyramid atrium thing poking up against the a little bit over the 30-foot height. The landscaping, as we discussed, would be okay. It would fall within the mid-range of the acceptable range. As I said, the 12% coverage that I calculated would not include the additional landscape area on the roof. So there's extra landscape area if you wanted to count that as well. Parking, which is always an issue in the downtown area. Per zoning, if we do our calculations based on the base zone district standards and the seating arrangements, would require 54 spaces. Again, we're introducing entirely new uses on the second floor and entirely new uses on the roof that were not previously there. On-site, there's 9 spaces. Those would remain slightly, restriped and hopefully maybe scooted over a little bit so we can get a planter in there. And there is a credit from the historic assessment paid into over the years of 38 spaces in Lot 3. So we would count those spaces much as we have for other projects. So 47 spaces would be the base parking that we would have. So we're short on parking in this proposal. Of course, as many of you, at least our ARB members, know and have heard recently, that Assembly Bill 2097 is in effect in our small city. And it essentially, it eliminates the city from requiring parking if you're within a half mile of the transit stop. In this case, that's the Amtrak platform. We're well within the half mile limit. So in terms of state law, there literally no parking would be required. From a practical perspective and how that works, we would staff still has to balance the Coastal Act and public recreation and access policies, and Coastal Commission has provided, I can't remember if it's 17 pages or 27 pages, but a memo to that effect that while AB 2097 is in effect and is allowed in the coastal zone, that each jurisdiction, city or county, would need to look at each project as it came in and make sure that there were potential solutions or mitigations to ensure that if projects came in that were did not provide the required parking under the zone district minimums, that certain provisions or, like I say, mitigations would be provided to ensure that we don't lose the opportunity for the public to park and access the coast. So in that memo, 17 or 27, it lists a variety of ways that cities can do that and perhaps get to a place where there's harmony. Things like providing additional bicycle parking, providing incentives for patrons or employees to use mass transit, micro-mobility, and so forth. I think from a practical perspective, in the downtown, AB 2097 is something for a project like this that really doesn't have as dramatic of an effect based on the historic use of the palms and the credit that they had in the parking lot, whereas other projects you might see come in the door that have, a parking calculation of a certain number of parking spaces, and the applicant could just say, we're not providing any under state law. So in this case, the applicant has we've already discussed the need for a parking study should the application move through the process, because we have a practical consideration of we have the residential neighborhood right there, we have employees, and if it was just the restaurant use and not the event center use, then it's kind of like that historic kind of number of employees that was the old Palms and probably wouldn't change that much. But now with these new elements and new uses on the second floor and potentially the roof, there would be a potential operational challenge, we would say, with that. The applicant has indicated that they would commit to a transportation demand management program, such as providing free bus passes to employees, incentivizing employees for carpooling, those kind of things. And those would be further studies. So if we did have a parking study, we would get into those kind of the details of how that would work and what conditions, how we would craft. The planning commission could condition a project to make sure that those things actually work. And so that would be, of course, down the road should the applicant come back and submit for their development plan and coastal development permit. In terms of the height and the setback, so we do, and I think your board's seen this section of the code recently. So we do have provisions in our municipal code to allow modifications to building height, setback, parking, coverage, landscaping, other standards. as long as the planning, in this case, the planning commission or on appeal, city council can make at least one, which is the important part of the following public benefits. Energy efficient heating or cooling, provisions of affordable housing, or provisions of a larger amount of open space or landscaping than the minimum requirements of the district. So in this case, with the setback, we've seen that modification be successfully used on other projects because of landscape areas and open space and other things, heating and cooling. I think we've seen several of those in the beach neighborhood where they've added covered entries where they're south facing and the sun's beating down on them and they're all the way up to the setback, and they've added those kind of things. And I think the ARB has been supportive of those, and the Planning Commission as well. In this case, staff, being myself and the director, have some serious reservations that any of these could be met for the height exceedance, and not sure, because this is the menu of options that the Planning Commission would have outside of a variance. So the variance is the highest level of relief that an applicant could get, and is reserved for very exceedingly rare circumstances. And this project wouldn't meet the threshold or the test where a variance would be something that the city could support. So that's kind of on the applicant's side of how to address one or more of these findings and how they might be able to craft the project in a way that would successfully get approval of a modification. As I say, it's not going to be the easiest way to go. So in summary, we'd like your feedback on the consistency with the applicable city regulations, including the V overlay requirements, the adaptive reuse and redevelopment of this obviously historic building, the project's compatibility with the downtown core and small beach town character, appropriateness and compatibility of the new rooftop elements with the surrounding downtown area, the visibility, massing, scale, and height of the new rooftop additions, and the overall thoughts on the building architecture and landscaping. And with that, I have nothing more to add.
Okay. Any questions for staff at this time? Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, I got a couple in no particular order. First, for staff, does the city accept the historical technical resources report? Is that by virtue
Board
of
member,
publishing it?
yeah, it's a very well done. I'm kind of a geek for historic reports, and I would say I even review them in my spare time. One of the preeminent historic firms in our area, and it was, we accept their conclusions.
Very good. I think I'll save the rest of my comments for later.
Okay. Anyone else?
One question,
Yes.
Brian.
Go ahead.
One of the questions that keeps on coming up on every large project is the parking.
Never
and-
getting away with it.
Right,
I
we're
know,
never
it's
getting
just-
away from that,
yeah.
but, and the parking lot 3, in most cases on weekends, it's packed out anyways, even without any additional businesses coming in. Is the city looking at any possibilities of maybe putting a double-decker parking in that lot or other?
So board member, it's
solutions?
so interesting. So I had a conversation with the director today. We were talking about these exact things. And so it's a two-part answer. So it's interesting when you look at the Walker study, which is now a few years old, that they did in the downtown, and then you look at the more recent studies that they've done, for instance, at the Surfliner, and they look at it different times, peak times, on weekdays, on weekends, and parking lot 3 isn't as occupied as one would think. If you look at it over a long period of time, it's really occupied on a summer, Saturday, or obviously during, Rods and Roses or, other
warm
events
sun
and
day.
stuff. But if you look at the data, it's not as utilized as you would automatically think. However, right, we have these, and the city honors these historic credits because these businesses, decades ago paid in to pave, to acquire these parking areas and pave them and maintain them and stuff. So appropriately, for instance, in the Palm, they had received credit for the 38 spaces and appropriately applied to the Palms, use, so they didn't have to, they didn't have a parking problem because they met the parking requirement. In terms of building more parking, I just had this conversation today, and what anecdotally I've heard is the cost of construction of a parking garage is astronomical. So if you add up the cost per parking space for like a 2-story parking structure, I don't know if it's materials or labor or just the code requirements or whatever, it's economically infeasible for a city like ours unless you had a project, right, that you could attach to it. So parking lot 4, as we'll see more of with the Surfliner, is probably going to be the approach. Surface level parking, south side of the railroad tracks. Beach neighbors aren't going to be super excited about that, but we have nowhere else, and it just seems highly unlikely that we're going to go up like Santa Barbara does and their parking garages. So it's going to, and these were issues before AB 2097, right? These were issues when the city just had to make projects meet their parking requirements or get modifications from the Planning Commission. And now it's completely different because the state said, hey, city, you can't even require your minimum number of parking spaces. So it's going to be an issue we're going to be dealing with over the the next period of time.
Okay.
And I'm going to piggyback on that because I was on the city council when we first looked at parking lot number 1 across from the lumberyard going 2 stories. And it came back that it was going to cost, I'm talking 12 or 15 years ago, somewhere in the neighborhood of $24,000 per space. Yeah, so we could attach it to your project.
It's probably double that now.
Oh,
right?
God, yes.
Or
At least
triple
that.
that. Yeah.
And
It's
with
crazy.
the parking with the AB 2987, I thought that was geared more towards residential, not commercial.
Residential and
And commercial.
And commercial, they eliminated parking for commercial.
Okay.
Wow, okay, that answered that.
So it's an issue. Our hands are slightly tied, but because we are in the coastal zone and we do have a legitimate concern about coastal access and coastal act policies, the Coastal Commission, especially our local office in Ventura, they'll be looking closely at this. So which is why when you have cooperative applicants that come in and say, okay, yes, we could take advantage of AB 2097. We can do that today. Well, if you're in the inland area, city, county really can't say much. They say, okay, that's state law. In the coastal zone, we do have these mitigations that the Coastal Commission expects us to implement with projects that come in that aren't providing parking so that we don't impact coastal access, visitors coming to the locals coming, wanting to access the beach and that sort of thing. So we do have still some tools, but it's a cooperative effort, because it's not in the there's no definition that says, well, this is adequate kind of mitigation to save our coastal access, and so it's on a case by case basis.
Okay, so then my only political statement would be vote all these buggers out,
Well,
from
that's one way.
local all the way to the state, so, and change it. Any
So
other
my
questions? Yes.
clarification on that is parking a planning issue and not an ABR issue?
We would like, yes, parking is a planning issue, but we would like, since the ARB does participate in the review of projects to determine if they're compatible, right, with our policies and small beach town character and those kind of things, or if there are ideas that the ARB members have as design experts that can steer a project in a way that might better implement parking, we'd love to hear them. But yes, I mean, in a sense, it's for the Planning Commission and the City Council ultimately to make these, like a modification and that sort of thing.
It's just our recommendation, we don't.
But it's important, if you can, put enough eyeballs on these kind of projects, ideas kind of come about and maybe things get better.
Yeah, and again, neighborhood compatibility, that's part of our purview,
Right.
so. Yes,
Sorry, Chairman,
Patrick,
one
go
more,
ahead.
one
No.
more thought. I didn't mean to open Pandora's box, so it's meant to be a short
Parking
question.
is a Pandora's box, it's
No,
our.
it's different than parking.
Go ahead.
Oaxaca Fresh, does the change associated with that side of the project render nonconformances further in the existing conditions of that structure?
No, so the change of use, it would be still a consistent type of use. It would be any structural alterations that would happen, so.
Funky space.
Yeah,
It
so
is
that
really
spot, the
strange.
annex, we'll call it, that wouldn't require anything so structural in nature that it would render it, it's already non-conforming because it's built right up to the setbacks, but
Right
there
up
wouldn't
to
be a
it.
problem with its continued operation and its current configuration versus the addition that would have to be removed and then the trellis thing rebuilt. That's a entirely different, that's, you're demoing that
So
part of the
half of
structure.
Oaxaca Fresh goes away. The other
I don't
half
think it's
stays.
half, it's probably less than that.
It's right
Is
about,
it?
yeah, it's a
It's
weird.
just about that, yeah.
Yeah.
And that used to be Tugboat Annie's back in the day, so, by the way, a bar.
You beat me. You lapped me. I've only been
About the hair-
27 years, so I don't.
And
I
the
don't
hair
have it all.
salon was actually on the 7th Street side of the Palms when they
Well,
did that.
lucky we can still take advantage of those.
Yeah, so, some of us can. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the applicant now. Thank
Good-
you.
Good evening. Oh, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Laurel Perez with SEPS Land Use Consulting, and we're helping to navigate the project through the permit review process. And we're very pleased to be here this evening. This has been a long time in coming. We're seeing you for the first time, but we've been working on this for quite a while. And as Brian has done a very thorough job of the presentation, so I don't want to be too duplicative. The project is largely an interior and exterior restoration effort. It's intended to restore the architectural integrity of the building, improve the pedestrian connectivity to Linden by opening up and removing that old 1960s addition and really restoring that frontage with an opening and creating a lighter entry. Also, we think improving the pedestrian connectivity and attractiveness along Linden, increasing the on-site landscaping, as we've pointed out, and recommencing the casual dining, family restaurant experience with banquet space on the second floor and the intention there is really to provide for birthday parties and private parties and, family events and celebrations and gatherings. And then, of course, this annex that we've been speaking about, this takeout market. And Brian hit on it. He was accurate in describing its intention, which is really to be open as a place where you can pick up something to go, head down to the beach, have a picnic. It would be open up during the daytime when the restaurant component is not. So that's the plan for that annex. And we are excited about this possibility for creating a small rooftop dining space that affords the local community as well as visitors the unique opportunity to view the downtown core area from that height, look at the mountains, enjoy the ocean views. It's unique, it's exciting. We recognize, we acknowledge that there are concerns about that. And I'll speak a little bit about the height modification that would be needed for that. But a lot of consideration was placed into that design, and pulling it back from the sides, 7 to 9 feet at minimum, creating that solid wall that, would face, buffer this area from Yucca Avenue, or Yucca Lane, I guess. And really keeping it minimal, keeping it as low as possible while still complying with the environmental health requirement for a trellis cover over the bar space. And the use of that area would be restricted to the city's recently adopted entertainment ordinance. I was just at the hearing the other night with City Council. Limitations would be placed on use and activity and hours, as well as limitations on lighting to make sure all lighting complied with dark sky requirements. This being a concept review, we don't have those details nailed down, but would certainly be bringing back a full set of lighting plans. We believe we can address the concerns that we've heard. We've read all the neighbors' letters that have been submitted. We're very sensitive to that. We want to continue to work with the community through this process to address those concerns because we think this could be a really great asset to the community. There aren't any other places where you can get that kind of vantage point in the downtown core and have those unobstructed views to the mountains and to the ocean. And limiting this space and designing it the way we have, our intention is to create something very special. The primary goal really is to return the Palms to its, its original use. And even back 100 years, when it was built, there was a restaurant component. And for the last, 70 years, it's been functioning as a restaurant. And so we want to bring that family space back to serve the community, to serve visitors, in line with city policies that encourage not just the small town, beach town community, but encourage a lively place to visit, live, work, and to shop. These are policies in the general plan, and to enhance the Linden Avenue downtown area. We think that this project has that potential. We're very much looking forward to your comments and working with them and incorporating them as best we can and moving forward in the review process. Regarding the height modification for the 1 foot 8 inches, I was looking at the findings, and we recognize staff's concerns about that. When you read the language here, it's that such modification is necessary to accommodate an innovative project which will result in at least one of the following public benefits, one of those being energy efficiency. And Daryl, our project architect, will talk about the improvements. One of the core improvements is that atrium component in the center, which is going to bring a lot of light into what has been a very dark, restaurant. So there are a lot of energy efficiency improvements that are built into this design, including the atrium. In addition, the provision of the larger amount of open space and landscaping. We think that is definitely a finding that can be made in support of that modification. But again, this being an innovative project, we know it's a little different. I think that your board is going to agree with the improvements that are being made to the facade to bring this back to its original historic splendor, if you will. The historians, by the way, post Hazeltine, are here with us tonight. Should you have any questions, I know they'd be happy to address them. Regarding the 7 parking spaces, as Brian has mentioned, our intention is to include a transportation demand management plan to address the shortage of those 7 parking spaces, encouraging everything from bus ridership by providing employees with bus passes. We can look at opportunities for incorporating bicycle parking on site. I think there's space to do that. We're committed to making this work. So we know this is the beginning of what will be a very long journey, but we're excited to hear your comments tonight. And you've done such a great job of covering all the land use issues, I don't have to go there. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our design team, starting with Daryl Becker of Becker Studios.
And Daryl, I've got it up for you, so if you need this switch slides, you can just let me know. And I'll try to
Okay,
make this.
welcome.
Thank you. I'll try to keep it succinct as well. A lot of what we covered already.
Can you push that?
Oh, yeah, I should have a green button.
Sorry.
Sorry.
A lot of what has been covered today as part of my presentation, so it's superfluous. So, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here and present the project. This is an interesting project. I mean, we've been nothing but excited when the owners of the property came to us and asked us to reinvigorate the Palms. And we had seen some previous iterations of other potential buyers studying buying the building and all kinds of different proposals. So the fact that they wanted to restore the Palms to a lot of what the Gloria was in the past was exciting for us. But it became clear, I met with planning staff just a little over a year ago in first review and iteration of our plans. It became very clear to us that the majority of the project would be a historic renovation rather than some architectural opportunity. They both go hand in hand. We have to do it correctly, but much of this project has been steered by the historic renovation of the Palms and everything from the detailing of the trellis that we have at the front, and we're excited about that. We're excited about taking down the what we feel is sort of a mass at the front of the street. We don't think it invites the public in, and that's what the development of this front patio does. If you'll go to the second slide, this is the structure as it existed, I think in 1912. And that facade is still on the building. It's just right behind the shed roof that you can't see into, right? The 1960 addition conceals that entire facade. So the order of the windows, the doors, it happens 3 times repeatedly across the front of the building. We've respected that. But we weren't sure what to do with the front because you can't see the front of the building with this facade on it. So we spent a lot of time studying that and then working with Tim and Pam and Post Hazeltine. On the next slide, you'll see an interesting thing. It's an interesting tell. The building's labeled the Palms Hotel, and if you look at, I think, the 5th palm tree down, there's a vertical sign that says Palm Cafe, and it's right in front of the market that we're restoring. And so the white wall is the side wall that faces this trellis element that we're opening up as the front patio to the building. So not only are we engaging the same use that was there 100 years ago, we're doing it in a way that we think speaks to the street and the streetscape and invites the public in. So a lot of thought has gone into the development of what this is, and we've done so in a very historically appropriate, with historically appropriate inputs. The next slide shows what that street looked like a little further down, and you didn't really see much of the building. I'm not going to take you through every single slide in our plans. I'm going to go to just a few select slides. I think one of the most important things to express to you is we've known from the beginning that introducing this rooftop element, we wanted to do something different, but this whole thing was sort of proposed out of the discovery of what we saw when we got up on the roof. Because there's nowhere else in Carpinteria that you get that vantage point. It's the only building that's this tall. And when you go up there, what you see is you see the mountains beyond, but you see all the farmlands through the valley, and then you see the ocean on the other side. And then as you look to the north, you can actually get a glimpse of Santa Barbara Harbor, which is pretty amazing from the downtown core. And so we started looking at this going, this really makes sense to try to incorporate. So we spent a lot of time studying that, talking to the health department, finding out what their requirements are, talking to planning staff to see what their requirements allowed and didn't allow, what the provisions that were going to be problematic. And then we minimized the design of the rooftop element to reduce it as low as we possibly could. And that's what we end up with, is a portion that has a small 1 foot 8 inch encroachment. I do want to take you to the renderings. I'm going to try to do a better job. Hopefully they come up better on our images. But let's go to the 14th, PDF 14 on a 14th sheet.
You just have to tell me to stop. I don't have the page.
Okay, you're in charge. Keep going. There. Okay, so that one back, Brian. Sorry. Okay, this is the existing building from across the corner at Little Dom's. And then if you flip to the next sheet, really all you see at all architecturally is the elevator tower element. You don't see at all the rear, and that the reason for that is because we've set this entire program back 7 to 9 feet. We've also put some landscape enhancements up there, both because one, we wanted to buffer that. The experience on the roof, we don't want customers on the roof feeling like they can jump off the roof, right? We need a safety element there. So we do have appropriate rail heights and wall heights up there. But beyond that, we have a stair stepping of landscape planters and things like that. And so, Brian, if you'll go ahead and take us 2 more pages, I think we get the other vantage point. So coming down Linden, you do get a little bit of a peek over the top of the Oaxaca Fresh elevation. but very little. The biggest change is that streetscape and how engaging that is as proposed versus as is. We can take us back to the as is with the terracotta tile. So I think that historically was probably the biggest change, and I don't necessarily think it was for the positive back in the 60s when they sort of put a Spanish influence on the front of this building, and they added the staircase on the side. We've really just tried to focus on the restoration of the building and taking it back to elements that might have been right at the turn of the century. If you'll go to, I believe, 2 more pages, you'll get the 7th Street exposure. So this is the rear of the 7th Street exposure, and I believe it's, not finding it here, so I believe it's, sorry, that's existing, it's the next page, if you'll go ahead. And so, on the back end of the building here, we've got a couple things going on. One is the addition of the landscape wrapping around the back of the building, so it softens the building from 7th Street. We've been very intentional about trying to soften the building where we can. And the rooftop element, because there is housing there, we realized that it was important to shield the housing, so we put a wall there. We have introduced some windows. The windows are intentionally added just to break up the mass of the wall. And then above that, we have a rooftop element that's essentially made up of a trellis with a polycarbonate type waterproof surface over the top of it to minimize the height build. And then I think the last thing I'll show you is the bird's eye view. So Brian, a few more back. Yeah, so that's the existing bird's eye rooftop view. And then that is the proposed. So again, you get kind of a sense of how tucked in that rooftop experience is. One of the things that's come up, it was proposed by staff that, perhaps we just have a lounge upstairs rather than actually have a dining experience and/or a small bar experience. And our overall feeling was if we were going to create this environment upstairs, it should be supervised and not just a place to hang out. So it's one of the reasons that it's necessary to program a use up there. And so we think that what we're proposing does make a lot of sense. It's been done very intentionally and with the most amount of respect to the building that exists. And then I'll turn this over to Elisa with regard to landscape.
Hello, my name is Elisa Reed. I am with Studio Papaterra, and we are doing the landscape for this project. I think when we were invited to participate in the landscape design for the palms, we started studying the historic significance of the site and the way that the identity of this corner and this building is relating to a plant, in the case of a palm, was very important for us to continue. So we thought, well, let's see what palms they have on site right now. And historically, what we discovered was that they've changed through the years, and there are some Mexican fan palms and California desert fan palms, and also what we believe may be an Australian cabbage palm, also included in the language of the palms in the street. And so we felt, well, this is a collection of palms already. Let's enhance that, and let's keep adding palms to the palm so that it's a botanical collection in a way. And the palm that we chose to be the leading palm was the Guadalupe palm, which is from Baja California, so it's part of the California Floristic Province, but it is from a southern orientation and location, and also coastal. And so it's a very hardy palm. It's something that is going to withstand a long time, and it's going to be very happy in this location. And we thought it would be a great addition to give the fan palm continuation of the imagery of the short, stubby fan palms in front of the building, but doing it with a new introduction of a more climate-appropriate palm. We also have a few smaller palms underneath to sort of keep that language in the palm idea. But then after that, the majority of the plant material is coastal, native, California, and/or climate appropriate for the area, so that we are creating a little bit of a sense of that beach landscape that you see. When you go to the beach here, you see the California sunflowers popping all over the edges of the cliffs, and the yuccas, and that kind of plant material makes it feel like a sense of place and belonging to where it is. And so that was our concept for the plants. If there's anything you want to ask to this point, or any comments?
Did you want to talk about the mural?
Oh, yeah, so then the only other thing we introduced to the project was the mural.
Oh, sorry, I should have
Yes.
turned to the plant page. while
There's
you
a
were
plant
talking about
page,
plants. I didn't know that you had that, okay.
The color scheme of the plants is it's sort of in a sunset tone. So we have oranges and yellows and whites, and that feeling of like that lively and bright color that belongs to the beach landscape. And then, as we all were talking about, and that feeling of the location of the site, how the site has a new opportunity to connect the user to the sky, the mountains, the valley, the agriculture, that farm to table, and out to the ocean. How do we continue to bring that and celebrate this new discovery, and also the historic and charm of Carpinteria, which is such a unique town? And so we thought that a mural that represented our coastline in a more of a plein air kind of feel, so it would be sort of a wash over the brick, and that we could play and identify key places within the landscape of Carpinteria that people could see, oh, this is this corner or that corner, but subtly do it very elegant and that plein air kind of washing of pencil of a watercolor paint. It was the idea to add an interest to the facade, which is pretty large. And a white facade could be very reflective of the sunlight, even though we have an amount of palms in front of it to also help soften it. We thought that this could bring a really interesting and a new sort of icon, like people would like to come see this corner and be in the interest of the town. Something to celebrate us.
Okay.
Noel, do we want the historians to speak and have them defend?
Yeah, so I just touched base with Post Hazeltine, who are sitting right here. I think they're, here to answer questions. I don't know if there's anything in particular you'd like them to speak to. Oh, did
Yeah.
you? Okay.
If you would like us to.
But otherwise, questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to just reiterate what Brian said, is that our Phase 2 part of our report, I'm sorry, I'm Tim
No, no,
Hazeltine
that
from
was
Post
fine.
Hazeltine Associates, is that we concluded that the project is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. And we did believe that the rooftop elements are reversible because they sit on what's essentially a flat roof now. And if they were removed in the future, removing them would not require the removal of character-defining elements of the building, which would be like the brick walls, the wood windows, the pressed tin cornice. So those elements would not be affected by a future removal of the pergola if it was installed upstairs, or even the outdoor dining area. So we consider that to be reversible under Standard 10.
Okay.
But we're here to answer any questions. If you have any questions about our conclusions or why we feel certain things are appropriate or not, we're here to answer
Okay,
your questions.
we'll take that into consideration, and if you want to finish up your presentation, then we'll come up here and start.
Things to wrap up.
No, I think that basically concludes. I think you'll see in the quality of the design that these owners are very much committed to restoration of this building and delivering a really beautiful, like I said, exciting, innovative project. And we look forward to your comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I just have a
Back to
question
the
of
board.
landscaping.
Please do.
Can you enumerate a little, or illuminate, I guess, the nature of the landscaping to mitigate the rooftop structure from the neighborhood?
Sorry, can I illuminate about?
What
type of
are the
plants?
proposed plantings?
Got it.
To hide the rooftop structure from the neighborhood?
It's going to be a similar palette in the ground and at the roof, so that it feels continuous. We are limited by soil depth at the roof. at the roof area. We're pushing to do it, the entire roof as a giant planter so that we have as much soil as possible. But the plant material is using, I believe, our native eriogonum, some yuccas as accent. We have 3 Atlas dwarf palms in the front so that we bring the palms to the roof. And a myriad of other succulents and things that could withstand that coastal proximity in the
How are you going to bring in the depth soil to get any kind of elevation out of the plants? That's what my question.
There isn't. They only have 2 feet of soil to work with.
Yeah,
We have it on page
Yeah.
A3.1, we've got detailing of how we're building up the roof bedding.
It's here.
okay,
Most-
I did see that, but,
Most green roofs are between 4 to 8 inches, and we're proposing 12 inches, and in some places, we're bumping it a little extra for 24 inches for our palms. So I think that we have a fairly substantial soil depth for a roof plan, a rooftop. And most perennials don't need more than 18 inches of soil depth.
okay.
So
I was going to defer to Amy because,
Yeah, and it's reading as if you've got, the majority of it is 1.5 feet, and there's some sections that are bumped up to 2. So that's where you're constrained.
okay.
We do public comment?
Yeah, well, first I'm going to ask if there's any questions that you guys have of
I have-
the applicant.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay, please, Richard.
You've talked about the views up there. Do you have any pictures that you could have shared with us?
Okay, the next presentation, you can have some
Say,
pictures.
site meeting.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We could do a site visit,
That'd be great.
of course.
And the other question I have is on the renderings of the Linden Avenue looking south. As you can see, they've got all the K-rail parklets that are there that really kind of mess up everything.
Right.
Are there any plans at all that you're going to put a parklet out in front of your place?
No, the intention of doing engaging the front of the building to the street of the patio is so that we don't have to do a parklet.
Right.
And so, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Because
Yes.
my concern is, and again, we as a board voted against the parklets, but we were overridden by the city council. And when you look at places like Coast Village Road, they've removed them all, and they're quite vibrant there with all their restaurants. And there's 12 additional parking spaces that the parklets have taken away from the Linden Avenue that I counted today walking around, so. Appreciate you getting rid of them, and if you can talk to the next door, get rid of those too. So, all right, any other questions for the applicant?
Just
Yes,
one
go ahead.
minor question on A 1.0. On the rooftop, around the skylight, where there's seating around the skylight,
Correct.
that shaded area, is that a barrier of some sort
It's a-
just on half of it?
It's a bench with a back. The idea of that is you're facing away from the,
More seating?
correct.
A11.
It's A1, oh, right here.
You can see it,
Yeah, right
yeah.
here. Right here, Richard.
Gotcha.
Or the-
That's helpful.
yeah.
That was a hard time. Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
who knows?
You keep hitting me. I'm about to hit you back, so.
That's all I had.
Is that it? Okay. Anything else for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up to the public. We come up, I've got some speaker slips.
Got some
Yeah,
speaker
just
slips. We do have,
Oh, you got some more?
no, just to remind the board members that we received
Oh, yeah.
six
6 or 7?
6 comment letters.
Okay.
I recall that there were 6. And just wanted to make sure that you noted those and had a chance to review those.
Yes.
Everybody review the letters
I
that
read
came in?
them.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, the first first speaker, Ben Muscuri. Hate only having one hand. Well, you were the first to put a speaker slip in. Come early.
Is it on?
Yep.
I'm Ben Muscari. I have a business in Carpinteria for the past 37 years on 6th Street, which is part of the downtown T district, and I have two other businesses on Linden Avenue, Carpinteria Beach Company and Carpinteria T-shirt Company. So I've seen Carpinteria grow a lot, and I just really like this project. It'll be very helpful. I think the applicants are doing the things that we like to see in Carpinteria, kind of keep it Carpinteria. So that's my only comment, and it's going to be a long road for you guys. Have fun.
Hey, that's why carpentry is what it is, so nothing's easy. Okay, Ben. I'm
was
sorry.
Bob.
Thank you. Oh, that was Bob's.
Yeah.
Which I thought he was going to speak to this. Okay, who wants to go first, George or Roberta Littner? Or tag team? George?
Good evening, board members. My name is George Layton, and I live in Carpinteria. My comments may be a little outside the purview of the ARB, but they need to be said. I love the palms. The friendly, cooperative swirl around the grill, the reasonable prices, the family friendliness. We all love the palms. Everybody went to the palms. If Carpinteria is known for anything outside of our immediate area, it's known for the palms. Roberta and I lived in San Francisco, and I mentioned to a coworker that we were going to drive down to Carpinteria to visit Roberta's parents. He said, "Oh, Carpinteria, that's where they have that restaurant. What's it called?" Yeah, the Palms. And Roberta worked with a doctor who made similar comments. So it's a treasure. It's an only in Carpinteria treasure. So update if you must. But please, please bring back something like the old Palms. There's no one in this room who doesn't miss the Palms. And all of Carpinteria would welcome back.
Thank you, George. Roberta?
Hi, evening. I'm glad that something's going on down there. This is sort of a weird question, but is there another elevator, like a dumbwaiter? Do the employees have to run up and down the stairs with the food? There's a banquet hall, there's things on the roof. How is all the food going to get up and down?
There is a dumbwaiter shown on the plan.
The other one is ADA. Where will wheelchairs and things come in?
Elevator.
Yeah.
Elevator, Roberta.
So it's outside the building, the elevator? And one thing, it's not exactly in your purview, but it's kind of coming down the road with the 700 Linden opening too. Can we think about a four-way stop at 8th? Because when I come home, like from the beach area at night, it's really dark down there, and I think if we're going to have tons more people out walking around at night after dark, that I think a four-way stop would be a good idea if you can put that on your list. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Roberta. Okay, that was it for such a controversial project. That was it. Anyone? Oh, they know how much authority we have up here. So. Come on up. Mr. Grant. Yeah, you do.
You can fill it out
Yes,
after
you do.
You can do it after your comments.
Okay, hi everybody, my name is Doug Grant. I'm a third-generation Carpinterian. My dad was Campbell Grant. I love this town, I've lived here my whole life, and I will probably die here. I got fond memories of going surfing on the world's safest beach, coming up and ordering a bag of fries at the spot for 15 cents. Maybe it was a dime. Might have been a dime. In any case, I got really fond memories of growing up here. One of them is the Palms. And to hear Daryl Becker saying that he's going to bring it back to what it was, I'm all over it. I love this idea. When I back up, driving down Linden Avenue, I looked up and I saw the Palms was closed, and I went, "Oh, the Palms are going to go." Well, before you know it, the spot's going to go.
No,
We can't have
spot
that.
will never go.
Okay, so if we can bring the Palms back with its old charm and some cool amenities like a drink on the roof, I'm all over it. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Hey, don't forget your mom taught all the kids here.
That's the one.
Yep, Lou Grant. Ryan, so I don't
Thank you.
mix them up. Thank you.
Now, we will
Oh.
ask for Zoom comments.
Thank you, Brian. This is a whole new thing. Okay, what do you think, Caleb? Do we have anybody?
If anyone is on Zoom and would like to comment, if you could please raise your hand.
We'll give it a second just to make sure.
While that's happening, so where are you gonna put the grill so you can cook your own steak? There you go.
And tell the people that aren't cooking steak to keep their bread off the grill. because
Yeah,
the-
you know,
they cook steaks.
I gotta tell you,
Keep
that,
that off of there.
you're right, that used to tick me off.
Should be a separate,
Yeah.
here's your bread grill.
It takes the space that we
Just
need.
hand you a flamethrower for that.
All right, Chair Stein, it doesn't look like there is any public comments at the time.
Okay, then we're gonna close the public hearing and bring it back up here to the board. Okay, we got a lot to look at, and Patrick, you were the first to raise your hand. Go ahead.
I'll start with a couple general comments and then get into a few others as well. Really a lovely project, as everybody's pointed out. I think it's really tasteful and it's really touching on everything that everybody wants to see. So I won't dwell too much on that. Couple of things just in general. I think to be a little provocative about the city's response to the issues of the rooftop versus what the historical report talks about. I don't think those two mesh very well right now. I don't share the pessimism about going up. See the historical report is actually pretty straightforward about its acceptance of that height, and I think it goes beyond, the language that I read goes beyond just whether or not you can replace it. That it's actually set back. It doesn't appear as an architectural piece, if that's the right way to say it. So I sort of lean on that language more so than the opinion of the city personally. So the setback, I think, is great. The height is okay. I'd go even a little further on the notion about the setback on the roof. You must have been to the Palms, because there is supervision needed.
That's on the first floor.
And that supervision, I think, is reflected by the setbacks, but it provides all those other things. But kidding though, around the atrium, you might think about that notion of supervision, because that could be a little risky to have seating that close to, something that's very curious. The other thing I'd mention, again, not necessarily in order, is, I thought about the previous review we had, the conceptual review that came out when it was going to be a hotel. And the first thing it's obviously is this is not being proposed as a hotel. And my first reaction to that was, well, that's a departure. So I was kind of going through my mind about what that really meant. And I came to the conclusion, and Kathleen helped me with this, is that I think this is much more local as a result. That it won't be felt like the rooftop and the bar and the restaurant is for the guests, but it's really for the city to enjoy. So that, I think, is a positive way of looking at a departure from what the original building was. The other thing I point about the original building is, when you read the historical report, the original building was 3 stories. And it burned down, unfortunately. So it's not totally out of the realm. Last thing I'll say about the height and everything is just think about story poles. I think it might be good to put up story poles that show the atrium and show the area there, because there will be places you can see it and places that you can't, and that might help with the look of it. The mural, I think the mural's very tasteful. I think a better application of the mural might be on the third floor, to sort of a little bit further disguising of that part of the feature, because if you got it down there but not up there, it sort of makes that stick out a little bit. The windows, I think, is probably the best historical touch that you're doing. So take that as far as you possibly can. I think the sashes are wonderful. That idea is really nice. Somebody made a comment in one of the one of the inputs that were written to make them double pane to deal with the noise. I don't know how you can do that and accommodate the historical view part of it, but I would lean towards historical. 'Cause that's going to be a really beautiful touch. Last thing is, if you can put a Washington palm out there and really strike the old original palm, that'd be great. I know they're not very practical. But when you look at those old pictures of those palms, they're really beautiful.
There's two types of Washington plums.
They're dying though.
California one.
That's not the one
The
that's.
Filipra, and then the Robusta, which is the Mexican one.
Right.
Both there.
They've just become really
They're-
gangly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I hate
the
that.
Guadalupe is, I don't know if I'm talking out of order.
No, please, if you,
Up to
if
the
you can
chair.
add to it. No, I'm fascinated because I had some questions about
Yeah.
that, so you might alleviate. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
The Guadalupe is it's a brahia, but it's a very similar in look. Like unless you know to pull it from a Washingtonian, you won't.
These are the
It's
Washingtonians.
a very
Right.
similar looking.
That's
It's a classic look.
ironically called
The
the
problem with
Robusta,
also the
and
Washingtonian
this
and
is
Mexican
the
one is that they're
Filipra.
basic.
Yes.
And so for
So
us, that's
it's
trying
just
to
a-
sort of minimize that, just keep
Okay.
things,
They're dirty, too.
yeah.
That's all I got.
Thank
Hey,
you.
all right. Oh, come this way. Richard?
Okay. On behalf of my wife,
Mine's coming too, so.
she would disagree with putting the grill back. Her idea of going out
Is
is,
not cooking your own
I don't
food.
have to cook my own
get it.
food.
I get
I
it.
don't want to deal with that. But personally, I enjoyed the grill. I'd like the bringing it back and especially taking off the front, just having the trellis up there just will really open it up a lot. And never putting a parklet in front would be great. The rooftop, I like the idea of activity up there, but as far as having any type of music or anything like that, in the written responses coming in, several of the neighbors were concerned about that, especially being up that high, the sound is just going to go everywhere. So maybe if you could put a limitation on the music, just keeping it down on the first floor would be helpful. And as Patrick pointed out about the bench and the seating, one of my kids is a speech language pathologist, and she's always, on my case about, Dad, you got to put a railing on your deck, even though it's only 30 inches off the ground. You don't have to, but it'd be great because if you take a fall, you're dead meat. So I would think that on your plantings up there, if you could put plants that have lots of stickers on them, that would really discourage anyone from even thinking about venturing out to get a better view of the ocean or the mountains. That would be really helpful as well, and cut down the potential of people falling off. I guess the other question I had, and this probably should have been for Brian, a lot of the comments that came in the written form were talking about the possibility of parking permits for the neighbors on the streets. Has the city looked at that possibility for them?
Not that I
Not
know
recently.
of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, not recently. We did look at it at one time, especially in the beach area, but.
Yeah, I remember the beach area, that being a consideration,
But
but
again, you gotta hire more code enforcement,
Yeah.
you got,
Becomes
it's
a-
kinda tough to keep.
enforcement, issue. Yeah.
Okay. Because certainly the neighbors would be concerned about that, because the parking is bad already, but with a new facility going in, and especially with the second floor, with the potential of bringing in a lot more people, they're going to have trouble finding parking places in front of their houses. I think that's about it as far as at this point, but, I'm not concerned about the extra 1 foot 8 inches, especially how it's set back. I don't think it would be a material problem, even though it may not meet one of the exceptions, you know, that this city has, I'm fine with it.
Thank you. You would like to go, or would you like Richard to go?
Sure, I'll
Okay.
go.
You may go.
I had another question for staff, which again, I should have brought up earlier. Several of the letters that we received also mentioned smoking out around the facility too. Are we not a smoke-free area here?
Yeah, I think there was a legacy of that in my recollection of the Palms back in the day.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So is it?
Around back.
Grandfathered in?
No.
Round
So
back.
is the,
That's, we already have, we have our city ordinances.
the ordinance is that there should not be smoking
Right.
Period.
in the exterior of the building? Okay, that was just my question. I think it looks like a great project. I really appreciate, and I don't have any problem with the modification at the front entry. I think that's really a gracious extension to the street that is sorely lacking right now. Those windows right in your face are not great. I agree with the other board members about limitations on music, and I do appreciate that the applicant has made a conscious effort to screen that rooftop area in the two areas that would be the most impactful to the neighbors down the street there, and also, again, pulling it back, and I think I could support the height because of that, although I am going to ask the builder if there is any way to reduce that. I'm assuming since it's a historical building, that there is no way to pull that down, and if it could, you would have. I do think story poles are definitely in order, just so that the neighborhood can also see exactly what it's going to look like and approach some level of comfort with that. Sadly, I'm not too keen on the mural. I feel like we've got a whole lot of murals going on, and I think I just love the facade of the building as is. You guys are making it really clean and tight and pretty, and I think that can stand on its own. I don't think you necessarily need the mural on there. We've got one just across the way going in, and mural. I don't know that we have a requirement for a percentage of necessarily native planting to be installed, and I would just encourage the applicant to maybe explore a deviation from maybe some of the herbaceous planting you have towards succulent. I just know in these commercial applications, when you're doing maintenance, the herbaceous planting is just going to require a lot more input in terms of the maintenance and deadheading the flowers and cutting things back, and it's going to be a little precarious to do that on that exterior edge. So you might want to think about things that don't need as much manpower and hands-on for that stuff, so it can just still look beautiful without having somebody, 2 feet from the edge of the building pulling out, cutting off flowers and stuff. I love the brajeas against that side of the building. I think that's, scale-wise, I think it's a nice, it's a great palm for that application because it's going to bring that building down to human scale from that upper side, and I think that works really well. And I think that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Richard?
Yeah, I think, I love your raising the roof over the front entry. It's dark and dingy in there right now, and at this higher level of a roof area, even though it's going to look like a trellis, is actually a solid roof with holes in it, which is fine, the skylights. Oh, no, those are actual openings? I'm looking at furniture down there. Which is a great idea. It gets a lot of sunshine into that front end of that seating area inside the building as well. I like the atrium inside, so when you walk inside, you see daylight well be in the building there, and you're not afraid to go back in the back bowels of the building. Is that glassed in all the way up, or is the code going to do that to
We're
you?
envisioning some glass and some open cells all the way up.
So you can have it open, so you can feel like there's trees in there and monkeys and all that kind of thing, right?
We're going to put you in there, Richard.
I'm not concerned about the 1'8" height violation. It's set back away from the end of the building, and I don't think anybody in town is ever going to see that roof edge at all. A story pole is probably a good idea, just to prove it, and we'll go from there. The perimeter landscaping is an excellent idea. I really applaud that kind of rooftop development. and that'll help mitigate the stair tower and the elevator tower and the mechanical back there at the restrooms and the enclosed bar area as much as you can with some kind of vertical stuff in there. Good old ficus ivy, if nothing else. The fire escape on the north side, the west side, I guess it is.
West side.
I guess could use some thought and provincial consideration. I'm not sure what, maybe a little bit more ornamental to go along with the turn of the century ironwork that was done back in those days, cast iron stuff, that kind of thing. I know you're just conceptual, so you're not even worried about that, and I know the lines make it look more prominent than it would be in real life, but that's part of the issue. The mechanical enclosure there, you might keep that wall as low as possible so it's not up there to violate the 1'8" height violation, just to keep that profile low to the neighbors to the that direction. And colors will be important, and plants will be important, and I love the palms. I hope we get the whole plethora back of them to help improve that streetscape. That's wonderful. Thanks a lot for your good work.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. First, I want to thank the folks that live in the neighborhood for writing in and bringing some good thought to this. I love what you're doing with the front. That is awesome, because it really needed something, and I think that'll be a good thing to look at driving up and down the street. The market next door, great idea there too as well. Love that. Banquet room, now is that going to be just an overflow part to the restaurant down below? Or is that going to be reservation only?
It would be either overflow dining from down below and/or reservable rooms for events.
Okay, just curious about that as well. You've gone a long way with the rooftop garden. I also do not have a problem with the 1.5 feet since it's set back the way it is. The only caveat I would have, and the way you have the, west and south sides, you've returned it back for sound for the neighborhood, and I know we went through that across the street with the 700 block, and people that live down 8th Street, and they put on panels of glass and mitigated the sound going that way. So the only thing I saw maybe on the north side, even though it's facing the mountains, something you could return that solid wall a little farther, because there are residents that are going to be on the 8th Street at an angle, yeah. It's going to go
Down
from here,
Yucca.
yeah.
Down Yucca Lane.
Yeah, down Yucca Lane. And we do name we're so proud, we name our alleys after them. So that puts us ahead of everybody else. I think also you might want to think about the 3rd floor, the walls and everything, maybe not the mural, but a darker color that would kind of, you'd see the first 2 floors and that would kind of blend in. So it's not so much up there. So, noise, I like the idea of limiting the noise factor, bands playing on the top floor and all that, any kind of, keep it very subtle. Let's see, smoking. Let's go smoking. The bottom floor with the palms, there's no smoking in Carpinteria, but there was always a tin can outside the door from the bar.
Yeah,
And a line of people on that railing. And I see the same thing happening on the 3rd floor facing west. Well, we can all say no, but nothing like propping open that door and there's a staircase back there and they're all gonna stand there and smoke. So anything and everything we can do to prevent that from happening, either put this is an emergency exit alarm thing that you can't prop it open and have 30 people. Because again, it affects the neighbors next door, as well as the noise, people coming up and down the stairs all the time.
Hey, smokers got rights.
Not in this town.
You know what, and you're right. You go to the south where my kids are. Yeah, everybody smokes there.
There you go.
So, let's see what else I have. Let's see. Yeah, I really like the employees. You have an employee patio in the back. There's a way to soundproof that as well. I mean, that's going to be, again, and I'm thinking the neighbors, and if this is open until 8, 9, 10, 8 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. You know, you have to, it travels, sound travels there, and think of the neighborhood. That's all I can say at that. Richard, I really like, well, I like both Richard. Richard, I really like the idea on the top. I was thinking the same thing. People up there with little kids, and those of us that had little kids can run
Yeah.
really fast.
Yeah.
Some kind of planting that would deter that, or,
42-inch high wall
She's,
all around the upstairs.
didn't you have, oh, I had boys. Are you kidding? They'd be up and over
Yeah.
that thing in a heartbeat.
she's
Bringing it back, my youngest son used to barbecue for our whole
the
family.
Hespero yucca will,
Yeah, something to
Handle
keep
that.
it hear that. I did like the other Richard.
Razor wire.
But paint it dark so it blends in. I did like, bless you. You know what? That's authentic. I like that. Oh, wait, that's for the old facade. I really liked your idea about the cast iron, the staircase in the back, that idea. My youngest son went to school, Georgetown, Texas, and all the square, the old buildings, they all have the old iron going up to the
wrought
second,
iron.
third stories. So I think that would really go a long ways for the look. Let's see, mechanical, you're gonna have that. Parking, there's nothing we can do about that. I really wish there was. And again, one thing about the Old Palms, and people do forget, because I lived in the beach area, most of the people, not most, but a lot of the people walk, you know. Hello.
Well, they might have driven and then had to walk home.
No, most of those people drove home anyway,
Yeah.
landed somewhere. Yeah, but it's, you know, giving out bus passes and that. And that's also, a lot of the employees lived around us down in the beach area. And unfortunately, you can't live in the beach area anymore if you work as an employee in a restaurant business. Let's see, what else? Christina Brand, this is a note to you if you're watching. I did read your whole thing, and I liked the little disclaimer, the last
yeah.
paragraph that
If
said.
you're still reading.
If you're still reading. So we all saw that. That was good. I just wanted to give her kudos
We did
for
all
that.
still read.
But other than that, it is really gonna make it come back and be something special, so.
I guess the big question is, can Carpinteria support another restaurant?
Not at my purview. If it's good, yes. And if you put a cooked grill there, you're gonna be
Question.
packed all the time, you know, or
Cook your own.
cook your own, yeah.
There'll be a petition for the grill. Yeah, there'll be a petition.
Well, it's over there in the same location anyway.
And no salad bars.
So,
Salad bar was-
Laurel, you might have heard at the council meeting, one of our council members asked us when she heard that this project would be on the ARB conceptual agenda. Her question was, "Gosh, that seems like, isn't that something that we would see?" And so I think in this case, these were very good. Thank you. Deliberative comments, all very positive comments. And I think these are comments that I'm wondering what the board's feeling is about the need for the Joint Planning Commission Council ARB setting.
Well, we're the important board, Brian. So, you know,
Well, you're here
they
first. They're
think
here
they
you first. Not that we wouldn't do that, but I think the decision makers might, council members and planning commissioners might want to hear your thoughts on if you think that's still a good step to take.
Well, the only thing, we can't give variances, we can't give exceptions.
Correct, the modification, right.
Modifications, so that's gonna have to come from the planning commission.
Well, they're ultimately going to end up there, but do you think this project should go to the Joint Planning Commission, City Council, ARB approach next step? Or do you think that your comments were
I don't think so.
substantive enough and clear enough that that perhaps that's not warranted?
I don't think so, you know, and again, we're the ultimate decision maker. Oh, wait a minute, that's wrong.
Well, you're here first, so.
Yeah, so, but
I agree with you.
If we were split here and we had a lot of public come in and absolutely not, blah, we don't want it for this reason, we didn't hear that. And
I agree. That's why I was just wondering if that's
Might
that
save a step. or
logistical.
two.
It's a logistical undertaking to get all three of those decision makers
is.
and together. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I agree with it, although I would add to the point about positive nature of our response as a board,
Mhm.
particularly around the rooftop,
Mhm.
that we project support somehow without going over the top. And I think, all due respect, I think the city report is pretty pessimistic in that aspect.
I wouldn't disagree with that recap of it, and I think it was less architecture and more noise and impacts related to the intensity of the use.
So as long as we're strong in our support.
Well, that goes
Yeah.
without saying.
Yeah, and
I
again,
mean, I think we're 5-0 here.
well, we don't
Okay,
vote, but I
we
think
don't
we
vote.
are voting.
If there was a vote, it's pretty clear,
And
yeah.
then, again, excuse me one second, the only thing I would say is, they'll have to come in under a CUP, and at that time, conditions as far as music on the rooftop.
Oh, yeah, there's still work to
Yeah.
do, right, and full development of the plans and all of the required items. We are gonna, need some noise studies and traffic or parking studies and then the formal application. I just was trying to get a sense of your board's, like, do we need to go to that joint
That next
level or just move it along? Yeah.
I think we're all unanimous here, and.
Good. Well, thank you for your comments.
Wow, thank you all very much. We really appreciate this. It gives us a lot of encouragement. We'll see this through. Thank you.
Good, well, thank you.
Want to approve the menu?
Oh, yes.
Well, let's make sure we took,
Not this menu.
minutes of May 16th. Any changes?
Yeah, oh, by the way, yeah, we're gonna be on the committee to approve your food menu.
The grill, the committee for the self-service grill.
That's a good call. I love
French minutes review.
Any
I
comments?
move to approve the meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Thank you.
See, I don't get my feelings hurt when you take over like.
This is the person that didn't eat dinner yet.
Okay. Oh, one more thing.
We're not having, as I think I reported back, we're not you're not required to attend the next meeting because we've canceled that because of the June 18th joint meeting. So you're off the hook. We have at least one item on June 27th.
Okay.
Anybody early vacation plans might not make June 27th? Yeah.
I'll be here.
It's July. I'm gonna miss a couple probably.
So we think we're good on June 27th?
Not be here, but if Amy's here, then
I'm June.
she runs the show
All right,
anyway.
Vice Chair.
I just got a good elbow. I got
No.
a good elbow game.
Well, and honestly, we've only got one item parked on there right now. So we'll let you know as soon as we can.
Okay, no member or city council?
I think June 27th.
Nothing to report.
Okay, well, Miss Amy has something to, no, I'm sorry, it was Patrick that had, asked me early in the meeting that you wanted to bring something up.
I'm not ready yet.
Oh, you're not ready. I'm sorry. I apologize, Patrick. Then in that case, we adjourn.
All right.
7:32.
June 27th is the
Thank you, sorry.
memorial for Don Sharp.
I just didn't want to forget.